A lot of you might know Dragon Ball Z, right? Pretty popular. It's been around for a very long time. You know, Goku, Vegeta, Gohan, all those people. Even if you've never watched the show, at some capacity, you've heard of it, or at least have seen some of the characters, because it's a Japanese cartoon, but in America, it's still very big, especially if you were growing up with it as a kid. And I never so the way I got introduced to Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball and the whole series was because I had a babysitter that I would go to, and that babysitter, for whatever reason, sometimes the bad kids would turn on the TV and they would be able to watch TV. And I remember us younger kids, we wouldn't, because they were really traditional and they thought TV was bad and it was going to melt your brain and all that stuff. And so they never allowed us to watch TV. But I remember one time we were watching TV and it was on. It was during the Frieza arc. I had to be like 5 years old. It was, I think, airing in America, an English dub for the first time. This had to be maybe 2002, 2001. And maybe that not even the first time. That could have been a rerun, but it was the first time a lot of kids my age, or just in general around my age, were watching it. And just that whole Namek series, every couple of weeks I would just kind of tune in. I didn't really understand the flow of what was going on, but I understood they were on this planet and they had to get all the Dragon Balls and all that stuff, whatever. But that's pretty much the synopsis of Dragon Ball Z, right? There's always some kind of main villain, main story, whatever. And if you know as much as I do about it, you know, obviously Goku's the main character, but it actually was intended that for some time, right, that Goku was going to die and Gohan was going to become the main character of the series. And you see that in the Cell Saga. And I promise I have a point to all of this, right? Some of you may have seen the thumbnail of this video where Gohan just has it. Damn, I got hit. Holy crap. Some of you may have seen the thumbnail where Gohan has that red line moment, is what it's called, where he has this sudden spiritual, I don't know to say awakening, but like epiphany. And it's triggered because the entire fight that he's having with Cell, his father knows that there's greater potential in him, but for some reason Gohan is unable to see himself. He's still timid. He's still very undeserving. He doesn't believe in himself or has the courage or the ability to speak that power or the urgency and that need in him. And, you know, at one point Cell goes to basically crush the head of Android 16. And I'm going to paraphrase it here, but he goes ahead and says, Gohan, just let go and be free. And that's when you see that clip of Gohan having that red line moment and then transforming to his Super Saiyan 2 form, which ultimately, you know, helps defeat Cell and, you know, saves the world, whatever. But there's something about that that's always stuck with me. That one little moment where you see Gohan just have that realization that there's nothing that's going to be able to stop this unless he completely just drives his ship and takes action. There's nothing that's going to be able to stop Cell's terror. There's nothing that's going to stop the evilness from going around unless he becomes that hard rock, right? That he's so scared of being because he's wondering the entire time that if he fails, you know, what the repercussions of that are. And that entire mindset of him being so timid and being like scared to mess up or scared to do any or take any action inhabilitates his potential the entire time. And I think that as I got older, I've had probably like a few red line moments, right? But I think if I think about it, the biggest red line moment for me was, and a lot of you can attest, right? Like nobody's coming to save you, right? That's like the biggest one. Like I remember, you know, there was one time where my mom, I was like 15 years old, and 15 or turning 16. And I think this is really the start of everything turning around as far as just how I was and how I used to be in my life, and just overall the transformation that took years upon years, but was the start of the momentum. But anyways, I remember my mom, I'm not going to get into details of what exactly happened, but essentially she came down to me as a 15-year-old kid. She had to have been maybe 30 or in her early 30s at the time. And she sat me down. She was like, what should I do? And this was a very, very adult decision. And it was one of those fork in the road moments where, if you choose this dialogue, then the entire story changes drastically from there. If you choose the other one, then it also changes drastically from there. And, my background is very much raised by a single mom. I have my dad in my life, but he obviously like doesn't live with my mom and I. At the time, I have like several siblings. So I've never really felt the weight of responsibility on my shoulders directly as I so much have in that moment. But when she asked me for that basically decision making of what she should do, I just realized two things. I realized no matter how, I guess, independent a woman may be, there's always going to be some kind of reliance to a man and any kind of man that they can cling to in their life. At least that's my belief. And probably the bigger thing was that my parents don't know shit. They don't have anything figured out. Everything that I thought my parents have had knowledge about, do have knowledge about, could have given me knowledge about, should be taken with a grain of salt. It should not be taken with this like, oh wow, I trust everything my parents say and I believe whatever the world tells me, and I believe everything. I think everything I realized in that moment was a lie, and I was just kind of free to like completely be myself without the discretion or permission of what my parents thought. Because here's my main parental figure, the woman that gave birth to me on this planet, asking me what she should do as a major decision for not only my life, but the rest of my brothers, affecting the rest of my brothers and sisters and my siblings and, the rest of my family, essentially. And that honestly was a spiritual red line moment for me. I think it didn't happen as instantly like Gohan transforming in the series, right? But what happened was that over the course of the next couple months, I became a lot more fine-tuned and serious, and hyper independence like kicked in and I activated probably in a level that I had never really seen before. Aside the fact that I was getting older and was going to have more responsibilities anyways, I was more proactive to it. I was kind of getting in the way of a lot of things and not allowing things to happen under my control and responsibility. And when that kind of focus was brought into my life, I was like, dude, I need a girlfriend, or I need to talk to girls. I need to take care of myself. I need to cut my hair. I need to look better. I need to care about where I'm going to school, where I'm going to college. I need to care about my grades. I need to care about my life. I need to talk to people. I need to talk to people outside of the computer. I need to. And it didn't come in necessarily in that way, right? Like I didn't have these like thoughts as descriptive and as direct as I'm saying now. These came as like subtle feelings, subtle intuitions over time. And I had like doses of redline moments over and over and over again. And even as I grew in as an adult, over and over and over again, right? But that was the one defining moment for me where I just kind of like completely had that like epiphany and started to mentally transform, which allowed me to physically transform myself as well. Dude, I'm going to startle the witch here. And it was the dumbest thing I think I could have done, but I thought I could escape her and I ended up biffing myself. But anyways, I ended up just, kind of like just completely eradicating any kind of centralized removal of doubt or fears. I'm not to say like I, didn't have doubt or fears in that moment, but because I had just like understanding that I can do this, whether it didn't matter really at that point. You have to understand, man, a lot of people will just project anxieties and insecurities onto you. And I didn't realize that how deeply rooted that was affected into everyday life, everyday decision making amongst everybody else. I kind of touched on this on my last point, but as I was kind of listening to myself in my last video, I realized like, dude, I had that red line moment, and there's a guy that has this tattoo of that one for specific frame and his shoulder or something, and I thought that was the coolest tattoo. Not that I would get that tattoo or anything like that, but it just kind of signifies to me how dope that moment was really in the series, and how much of an imagery that kind of confines to, right? As I get older now, I think about that spiritual epiphany moment And, whenever things aren't serving me in my life in a way where I kind of feel and I have that doubt and I have that belief from other people that I can do this, and that voice within me is saying, but what if this happens? But what if I, I'm unable to do this? What if I actually end up messing it up and everybody's dependent on me and I can't get out of that situation? It's like, just let go, just completely be free. Whatever will happen will happen. If you get destroyed or if you die, I'm not saying it has to be that drastic in most cases, but if you get destroyed in the process, then whatever, but you'll never see what could potentially happen at your best, right? Because you're thinking right now, the reason why you're thinking the doubt anyways is because you're thinking at your lowest moment. You're thinking at a moment that's like, you're thinking with like a V4. You're not thinking with a V8 brain. You're not thinking with that V8 action mindset. You're thinking with a freaking conceptualized smaller version of yourself, not the one that's like doing everything that's required at their highest capacity, right? And I'm glad that, on that kind of anime talk, when Gohan has that beast moment, it kind of awakens that thing. He sees Piccolo, his mentor, his person that he trusted from a very young age and molded a lot of his behaviors and who he is as a person, get destroyed and killed by Cell again. Not again, but killed by Cell, which is just like, the antagonitor. What am I trying to say? The antagonist of the movie or whatever. He kills Piccolo and he's holding him there. You see Piccolo lifeless for a second, and he just has that moment where he's like, dude, I need to stop holding back and I need to take control of the situation, right? And then in the saying of just in general of the series, right, Goku, he says, like, I think this is whenever Gohan is trying to become a Super Saiyan for the first time. And this is the coolest part to me about Dragon Ball Z and a lot of the imagery and symbolism. It's like, when you become a Super Saiyan or when you trying to transform into a Super Saiyan, it's the tingly feeling that you feel that you allow yourself to transform. It doesn't come from a need. It doesn't come from a want. You can't want to become a Super Saiyan. It comes from a requirement. You have to need to become a Super Saiyan. You have to have a circumstance in front of you that is just simply requiring that out of you, almost from a dependence of survival and a dependence of, I have to become this. I don't have a choice. And I think a lot of my mantras and a lot of my beliefs come from that. Like, if you don't have hey, this has to get done, or I have to do this, or this has to be like my mission, right? A lot of the guys in the red pill, the manosphere, as dumb as they are, a lot of the times, the one thing that they say that I can't help but agree with is that you do need some kind of vision. You do need some kind of purpose. And it's not like, this kind of thing that it's not embellished sometimes within words. It's more so embellished within a vision that sometimes only you yourself can see and can't put into words. It's like trying to convince somebody that we're both seeing the exact same color, right, within our eyes. We both acknowledge that it's red, but we're both seeing a different color, and that color is in it. You can't describe it to anybody else. That's why it's become so difficult, right? But if somebody can see that you have that calling or that potential within yourself to be able just let that color out into the world in that sense. That sounds a little gay when I say it that way, but it's true, sometimes you gotta be, sometimes you gotta be a little gay, man. That sounds so weird. You gotta be a little gay. You gotta be a little retarded, I think that's part of the that's what a lot of this manosphere stuff doesn't allow you to actually do. You can't really hone in on your purpose without acknowledging that, like, gay part of yourself. I want to say, like, I don't want to say the feminine but just that spiritual-ish, just that like feely part of yourself. And that maybe what I'm trying to say is like emotional part of yourself, right? Because it is a blend of emotions that are happening there, right? You have to have a sense of emotional urgency too in order to have a physical urgency, right? Like, the reason why you probably feel indebted to go to the gym and do all these things and get stronger is because you have an emotional infliction, right? And sometimes it could be for like that gay, it can actually be gay, right? Like these guys talking about, I'm fighting my demons. That's a very selfish thing for you to go to the gym for. I'm not here to knock anybody's reason to go to the gym, but I think that if you're just kind of like, I think that it starts to fall apart very quickly whenever it becomes a essence of vanity, pure vanity, I should say. That's the reason why you want to get stronger, and the reason why don't want to get stronger, or it's not even forementioned, is that because getting stronger will enable you to become a stronger person and have stronger thoughts and stronger feelings and protect those in many different ways, not just physically, but by resilience, by measure of understanding that you can change your circumstances, you can change your body, right? You can change the external environment that you have around you. You can change if push comes to shove, you're never going to have all the answers. You're never going to understand every single bit of piece of information, and you're not going to have all of the analysis before you actually make a decision. But you know what? I have a brain that's figured things out before. I have a brain that's concluded that things, whenever you're making it seem so big of an issue, like, when I was younger, I remember like the biggest things that used to inhibit me from like going out and doing things is like, I've never done that before. I've never, I've never gone to a concert before. Where do I park? How do I park? How do I find my car after I park again? Where do I go for the ticket counter? Where do I, should I go by myself? Should I go with people? What if I go by myself? What if they make fun of me? Like all this overthinking at some point I've had, and then in the same moment, in the same breath, I don't know, I've always had this kind of inner thing that's after some time that's been like, all right, we'll figure it the fuck out, right? Who cares, right? I'm not going to allow this stupid ass racing of decision making and thoughts to be the reason why I don't do anything at all. That's retarded, and not the good retarded, the bad retarded for, anybody that's confused there. That's not good retardation. That's bad retardation. And I think there's a difference, right? Like when you're retarded to the point where you're not able to do anything, or you're anything that you can do or need to do is being held by the standard of you need to understand everything before you do it. You have completely lost the plot. This is why thinkers are like there's not that many thinkers in life, right? Like there's not that many philosophers that are aforementioned versus the people that have actually taken actions, generals, decision makers, guiders, pioneers, people that went on expeditions. These thinkers aren't exactly remembered throughout history because they don't do shit. A lot of the biggest thinkers, that are remembered, right? Like Julius Caesar, I think is one of them. I'm thinking of Marcus Aurelius. But Marcus Aurelius, he was an emperor, but he was also a thinker. His thoughts also reflected his actions that he was doing. He wasn't just thinking to scratch his nuts and sniff them and smell his own fucking farts and shit whenever it roams around in the air and be like, God, that's so gross, but that's mine. It's like, no, he was actually out there like in the field doing this shit. He had personal afflictions to the thoughts that he was having. There was an emotional element, an emotional conception to those things. He had, I'm sure, multiple red line moments within his own life, right? If you don't have red line, the red line moment really enables you to do one or two things. You either act or you curl up in a ball and you suffer and die, right? And if you are having those red line moments and you decided to curl up in a ball, then that's exactly the reason why, you're in that state where nothing can seem to be done. It's all helpless, all without void or warranty. But I'm here to tell you that, red line moments come multiple times within your life. It's not like, it happens one time. You'll have epiphanies that are spiritually and emotionally significantly attuned to you plenty of times. And it's not like it won't ever happen again. So if you're in this void that, it all matters for nothing, there's no hope, there's no, like just think about it. How many people have thought about that one way or another and have like changed that direction? That should be alone to tell you enough that anything is essentially just by your own merit, right? There are people that, like I said in my last video, there are people that just suck at certain things at first. There are people that just don't have the natural talent or ability to do things as well as others. But it's like the gym, right? It's like 99% of people can't go into the gym and bench two plates, right? But there are percentage of people that can bench 4 or 5. But these are people who are like top 0.001% of those, like of that parameter of gym goers. You don't have to be the 0.0001 to be successful in the things that you do. And this is just physical aspects and attributes, right? So just understand that that's typically the case. Most of life is just having there's not that many people that turn Super Saiyan 2, guys. There's people that turn Super Saiyan 1 and they just see that happen to them and they just run away. They power down and they just go and they slap themselves up for not acting in that moment. So don't be a coward in that moment. Be a Super Saiyan 2. Face the fears of whatever happens. If Cell whoops my ass, I don't care, but I have to save the planet. I have to save myself. I have to save those that I care about and be stronger for those that love and support me and see my potential because I owe it to them. So guys, I'll end the video there. Like if you like, don't if you don't. White Pope Brian signing out. Peace.